You were never taught to speak your truth. Let that sink in for a moment. Not just speaking up, not being loud, but speaking your truth, your emotional reality. Who taught you how to do that? For most young men, the answer is no one. From the time you were a boy, chances are you were rewarded for keeping quiet, for being strong, for holding it in, for bottling it up and pushing through. When you were hurt, you were told to man up. When you felt lost, you were told to figure it out. When you were angry or overwhelmed, people just called you difficult, so you shut down, and slowly you lost the ability or the permission to really speak. And I don't mean public speaking. I don't mean arguing your point or winning a debate. I mean speaking from that place inside you that knows what's real. That sacred place where your emotions, your values, your pain, and your passion live. And because no one taught you how to access that voice, you started speaking from your mask instead of your heart. Maybe you've noticed it. Maybe in conversation you say what you think others want to hear. Maybe in dating you find yourself performing rather than connecting. Maybe in moments that matter most when you're hurt, or when something beautiful happens, you go silent. Not because you have nothing to say, but because somewhere deep down you're afraid that your truth won't be accepted, or worse, that it won't even be heard. But here's something I want to say to you, clearly and with care. That isn't your fault. You were raised in a system that taught boys that feelings are weakness, that emotion is instability, that vulnerability is dangerous, and so here you are, maybe intelligent, maybe hard, working, maybe even outwardly successful, but emotionally starved. Mute inside your own life, wanting connection, but not knowing how to reach it. Feeling pain, but not knowing how to name it. Waking up each day with a voice, but unsure how to use it without shame or fear. And the real tragedy is this: when you don't speak your truth, you lose access to your power. Because your truth is not weakness, it's strength, not the kind of strength that dominates, but the kind that builds trust. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that resonates. Real strength is being able to say, "This is who I am. This is what I need. This is what I feel." But if no one's shown you how, where do you start? You begin by listening. Not to the world, not to the noise, but to yourself. You create space to ask, what am I actually feeling? What do I actually believe? What part of me have I been silencing just to be accepted, to be liked, to survive? Because if you can't listen to your own inner voice, you'll never find the courage to share it with others. And if you don't know your own truth, every conversation becomes an act of guessing, every relationship a performance. The good news is your voice is still there beneath all the layers. It's waiting, and here's the powerful thing about the human voice. It carries more than words. It carries energy, integrity, intention, emotion. When you speak from your truth, even if your voice is quiet, even if it trembles, people feel it. They may not know why, but they'll listen because it's real, and we're all starved for something real. So no, you were never taught to speak your truth, but you can learn, and it starts not with shouting, not with force, but with honesty, with courage, with giving yourself permission to feel, to express, to be. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present, because once your voice connects to your truth, it becomes a tool, a bridge, a beacon, and you become not just heard, but understood. That's when everything begins to change. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever been praised for being quiet? Told you're easygoing, low drama, or chill, and yet inside you're screaming? It's a strange thing, isn't it? As men, we're often mistaken as strong simply because we don't speak, because we seem calm or collected or composed. But there's a dangerous myth in that one that costs us more than we realize, and it's this: silence equals strength. But I want to challenge that today, not to shame silence, but to separate it from the idea of stillness. You see, silence can be reactive, a defense mechanism, a way of shrinking, hiding, avoiding discomfort. It can come from fear, from insecurity, from a lifetime of being shut down. Silence sometimes is just the armor we've worn so long that we forgot we're bleeding underneath it. Stillness, on the other hand, is conscious. It's chosen. Stillness is presence. It's the deep breath before the truth. It's the pause between reaction and response. Stillness is not the absence of noise. It's the presence of depth. You can be still and fully alive, still and fully in your truth, still and utterly powerful. But here's the problem. We've confused these two. We've grown up watching stoic heroes who grunt their way through pain, who don't need help, who keep it all in. And so many men have internalized this image of quiet suffering as strength. We bite our tongues, we isolate. We say, "I'm good," when we're breaking down inside, and then we wonder why people can't connect with us, why women pull away, why friends stop checking in, why we feel invisible even when we're in a room full of people. It's not because we're bad men. It's because we're unreachable in our silence. Stillness, though stillness, invites people in. It makes space for truth, for trust, for love. A man in stillness is a man who knows himself. He doesn't need to speak to prove his worth. But when he does speak, you listen because there's weight in his words, not volume, not bravado, just presence. You can feel the difference, can't you? Silence closes doors. Stillness opens them. Silence says, "Don't come closer. I'm not safe here." Stillness says, "I know who I am. You're welcome to see me. And I want to say this gently but clearly. If you've been hiding in silence, it doesn't make you weak. It means you've been surviving, and that matters. But it's time to grow beyond that. It's time to find your still point, the place inside you that doesn't need to perform, doesn't need to defend, doesn't need to control. The place that just is steady, grounded, clear. That's where your real voice begins, because when you speak from stillness, people don't just hear what you say. They feel where it's coming from. And when your words rise from a quiet, rooted place, they carry more power than any shouted opinion ever could. So here's the invitation. Don't mistake silence for strength. Don't mistake avoidance for control. Instead, build a relationship with stillness. Sit with yourself. Listen without judgment. Speak when it's true, not when it's safe, not when it's strategic, when it's true. Because in stillness, you'll find something silence could never give you, yourself. And once you've found that, everything you say from that place will resonate, not just in ears, but in hearts. Let's go there next. Let me tell you something that most people never realize. The most important voice you'll ever hear is your own. Not the one you use in public, not the one you shape for interviews or social media or flirting or small talk. I'm talking about the voice you hear in the quiet moments late at night, first thing in the morning, or when the world has gone still. That voice, the one that narrates your life, the one that says you're not enough, or you can handle this. The one that whispers they're going to leave you, or you're worthy of love. The one that echoes every wound you haven't healed, and every truth you've been too afraid to own. And here's the hard part. Most men are at war with that voice, and they don't even know it. We bury it under distractions. Work, porn, gym, games, silence, anything that drowns out the noise. But that voice, it doesn't go away. It follows you into every relationship, every first date, every job interview, every time you look in the mirror. And if that voice is rooted in fear, in shame, in self, hatred, it poisons everything. You can dress it up. Hide behind confidence. Flex your money, your body, your status. But deep down, If that voice is tearing you apart, nothing you build will feel safe. Because self-talk isn't just mental, it's emotional, it's physical, your voice. What you believe about yourself seeps into the tone you use with others, into your body language, into your ability to be honest, to set boundaries, to love. And here's the truth no one tells you. People hear the voice in your head through the voice that comes out of your mouth. If your inner voice is full of doubt, your outer voice will sound apologetic. If your inner voice is angry, your outer voice will sound sharp, reactive, or defensive. If your inner voice is disconnected, your outer voice will sound hollow, even if the words are polished. So what do? How do you change that inner narrative? It starts with awareness, not judgment, not shame. Awareness, sit with yourself. Turn down the volume of the world and just listen. What do you say to yourself in moments of failure? What do you say when someone pulls away? What do you hear when you look in the mirror? Most men are repeating things they heard, not things they chose. A parent's voice, a bully's voice, a teacher, an ex-society, culture, and somewhere along the way it became yours. But here's the power you didn't know you had. That voice can change, not overnight, not with fake affirmations you don't believe, but slowly, deliberately with truth. You start replacing "I'm broken" with "I'm healing," "I'm a failure" with "I'm still growing," "I'm unlovable" with "I am learning how to love myself." And no, that may not sound sexy. It won't win you attention in the moment, but it's real, and real is what roots your voice in strength. Because the moment your inner voice starts to soften, so does your tension, your guard, your impulse to perform. You stop needing to prove your worth. You stop needing validation just to feel like you're enough. And in that space, something beautiful happens. You start speaking with integrity. People begin to feel your presence, not just your words. You connect, not from fear of rejection, but from a place of wholeness. And slowly, the world stops feeling like a battlefield and starts feeling like a place you can breathe. So I'll say it again. The voice in your head is the one you must master first. Before you worry about what to say to her, before you chase better conversation skills, better dating strategies, better outcomes start here. Listen, reflect, rebuild, because when the voice inside of you becomes kind, clear, and true, everything you speak out loud will carry that same energy. And people will hear you, not just because you're speaking, but because you've finally started listening. There's a difference between being heard and being felt. We live in a world that celebrates volume. People shouting their opinions online, interrupting to make a point, talking just to fill the silence. We've confused loudness with confidence, speed with intelligence, and control with strength. But here's the truth. Volume doesn't equal value. You can shout all day long and still say nothing worth remembering. What truly moves people, what truly connects is resonance. Resonance is the energy beneath your words. It's the emotion carried in your tone. It's the presence that lives in your pauses. It's not just what you say, it's the feeling people walk away with after you speak. Think about someone who's really impacted you. Maybe it was a coach, a teacher, a friend, a stranger. Chances are they didn't scream, they didn't overpower. They didn't dominate the room, but they resonated. Their words landed because they were speaking from a place of truth. And here's the secret. Resonance starts inside. If your heart isn't in it, your voice can't carry it. If you're just trying to impress, manipulate, or perform, people will feel it. They may not be able to explain it, but they'll feel that disconnect. And you'll be wondering why your words never seem to work. But when your voice is grounded in truth, when you're speaking from alignment, not agenda, people lean in. Not because you're loud, but because you're real. Not because you're pushing, but because you're anchored. Let me give you something practical here. something Julian Treasure teaches often. There are 4 powerful cornerstones of speech that create resonance. He calls them hail, honesty, authenticity, integrity, and love. Let's break that down, not just as a speaking tool, but as a way of being. Honesty, not brutal truth, but grounded clarity. Speaking what is real, even when it's uncomfortable. Saying I'm not okay when you're not, or this matters to me when it does. Authenticity, showing up as you, not a version of yourself you think others will like. No persona. No mask, just you, because no one can feel what's fake. They can only connect with what's human. Integrity, saying what you mean. Doing what you say. Being the same man in public as you are in private. That consistency creates resonance. It tells people, I can trust this voice. Love, not romantic love, but care, respect, presence, even when you're angry. Even when you're setting boundaries. Speaking from love doesn't mean softness. It means alignment with your values. It means remembering the humanity in the person you're speaking to. Now, let's be honest, this isn't always easy, especially if you've been used to performing or shrinking or staying silent or being louder than necessary just to feel heard. But here's where it all shifts, when you stop speaking to be noticed and start speaking to be felt. When you slow down, when you breathe before you speak, when your voice becomes a reflection of your inner state, not your outer performance. Suddenly conversations change. You're no longer reacting. You're responding. You're no longer trying to win. You're trying to connect. And connection, that's where your true masculine power lives. Because real strength isn't loud. It's not sharp. It's not hollow. Real strength is resonant. It calms a room. It opens hearts. It earns trust. So the next time you speak, ask yourself, am I being honest? Am I grounded? Is my tone aligned with my intention? Is my voice serving connection or my ego? Because when you master resonance, when your inner truth and your outer voice match, you become the kind of man who doesn't need to shout to be unforgettable. The world is always listening, not to your words, but to your frequency, to your tone, to what you sound like underneath the surface. And here's a truth many men never get told or don't want to hear. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are, and what you sound like is a mirror of that. Now, I'm not talking about the pitch of your voice, or whether it's deep or smooth or commanding. That's surface stuff. I'm talking about your energetic tone, your emotional texture. What your voice says about your relationship with yourself, long before anyone even registers the words you're saying. Let's be real. If your voice is constantly apologetic, you'll attract people who feel more powerful than you. If your voice is bitter or cynical, you'll attract conflict, distance, mistrust. If your voice is uncertain, performative, always trying to please, you'll attract people who take, but rarely give. And here's the hardest part. When this keeps happening over and over, you start to internalize a painful story. Maybe I'm just not worthy of love. Maybe this is all I get. Maybe deep connection just isn't for men like me. But what if it's not about you being broken? What if it's about your voice being misaligned? Because if the voice coming out of your mouth is disconnected from the man inside, if you're speaking from insecurity or need or fear of being abandoned, that frequency repels the very connection you long for. And I want to pause here and speak directly to the part of you that feels hopeless, because I know how exhausting it is to feel like you're trying, that you're showing up, that you're being nice, or doing everything right. And still the connection slips away. You start to think, what's wrong with me? Let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with your voice. There's only something missing in your relationship with it. You've been taught to speak from your surface, to be clever, smooth, impressive. But connection, real, deep, intimate connection only happens when your voice speaks from your core. Not neediness, not anxiety, not performance, presence, when your tone says, I know who I am, I don't need to be chased. I'm not afraid to walk away from what doesn't nourish me. I'm open to love, but I won't abandon myself to get it. That kind of voice, it's magnetic, not loud. Not flashy, not full of game, just clear, honest, stable, and women, especially the ones who are grounded in themselves, can feel that. So can friends, so can business partners, so can people of depth, because your voice signals how you see yourself. And if you carry shame in your voice, it tells the world you expect rejection. If you carry truth, calm, confidence, it tells the world you're already home in yourself. And that energy doesn't chase, it attracts. So here's the invitation. Stop asking, why won't they pick me? Start asking, what does my voice broadcast? Does it carry desperation or direction? Does it echo your wounds or your wisdom? Is it coming from a man who's lost or a man who's learning? Because when you change your inner soundscape, your outer world shifts, not instantly, but gradually, powerfully, permanently. Your voice has the power to call in the exact life you're ready for, but only when it's aligned with a version of you that believes you deserve it. So speak, not just to be heard. Speak from the truth of who you are, and let that frequency do the attracting for you. Every man must decide what his voice is for, and too many use it to beg for attention, beg for approval, beg for love that they themselves do not yet believe they deserve. They don't say it like that, of course. No man wants to think he's begging, but it sounds like this. Did I say something wrong? Are you mad at me? Why don't you want me anymore? Please, just give me another chance. Sound familiar? We've all been there, and I say that with compassion, not judgment. Because if you were never taught how to build yourself, worth from the inside out, then it's only natural to seek it from someone else, from the woman you're dating, from the job you chase, from the likes, the follows, the attention that feels like connection, but never quite fills you. But begging is beneath your voice, not because you're too good for it, but because begging turns your voice into something it was never meant to be, desperate, powerless, small, and that's not what your voice was made for. Your voice is a tool, a precision instrument. It can wound, or it can heal. It can tear down, or it can build. And here's the truth I want every man listening to feel in his bones. You were not given a voice just to survive. You were given a voice to create, to build trust, to build intimacy, to build vision, to build peace inside your own mind, to build connection that's real, lasting, and rooted in truth. You don't have to use your voice to prove anything. You don't have to speak from pain to be seen. You don't have to chase love with clever words and the right tone and a perfect script. You just have to speak from alignment, from self-respect, from truth that doesn't tremble. Because when your voice builds instead of begs, the world around you begins to shift. You start setting boundaries not from anger, but from clarity. You start leading conversations not with control, but with presence. You start telling people who you are not hoping they'll like it, but knowing that if they don't, that's okay. Because you're not speaking to keep someone. You're speaking to be with someone who's aligned with the man you've become. And that is when your voice becomes powerful, not because it's louder, but because it's cleaner. No guilt, no games, no groveling, just truth spoken with care, just emotion channeled through stillness, just presence without performance. So I'll leave you with this. From this moment on, ask yourself every time you speak, is my voice building something right now? Or am I begging? Because once you learn how to use your voice as a tool, not a weapon, not a cry for help, not a performance, but a tool. You become a man who creates the life he wants, not one who waits to be chosen for it. Speak to build, speak with resonance, speak from stillness. And above all, speak with the knowing that you deserve to be heard, not because of how loud you are, but because of how true you've become. Your voice has power. Use it wisely. You made it to the end. That says something. It says you're not just scrolling for noise, you're searching for truth. It says you're tired of pretending, tired of being the man who hides his pain behind a strong jaw or a clever joke, tired of performing and ready to be. And if that's you, if this landed in your chest, if something cracked open even a little, don't keep this to yourself. Drop a comment, tell me what hit you hardest, or just say I'm here. That's enough. Like the video, if it made you feel something. Share it with a brother who's lost in the noise right now and needs to hear this. And subscribe, not because I want numbers, but because I want to keep building something real with you. This isn't content. This is connection, because men like us, we don't need to be louder, we need to be heard. And that starts here. Your voice has power. Use it wisely. I'm with you. Until next time, pause, then fade out.